This is a video I've thought about for a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this out there. I thought about the symbolic. This is where it started, and then this is where it'll probably, I'll go from this point. Washington D.C. to me, outside of governmental control, has no actual value. I'm going to make that hot take. Washington D.C. was built on a swamp, much the same way as Mexico City was built over a beautiful lake that was completely destroyed to create Mexico City. But like I said, we're not going to go full on Ant Prim or like Pine Tree Twitter type. Pine Tree Twitter really doesn't exist anymore. But beyond that, but it made me think of what real value big cities really hold, other than transportation hubs, and even really outside of those areas and those particular zones. Do big cities really serve a purpose? Now, I'm watching this video from a guy who's making a video called Escape from California. Lots of pain coming, home sales slowing, power of prayer buying gold. He sounds like a bit of a grifter, and honestly, I'm not going to watch anymore. But the thing is, though, he's talking about what is occurring with, like these stores getting robbed and stuff like that, these organized robberies that have occurred in, Beverly Hills, this and that. Why should this be surprising to anybody? I mean, it's kind of like the bling ring, this and that, from back in the day. But we're going to see these big cities become more and more cannibalized. Like I say, and big cities like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, of course, Dallas, Fort Worth. These cities are going to be ravaged. You know, they will be the first ones that really have problems. Now, for me, I live in a kind of a mid-tier city. If you want to look at it like China, I would say I live in probably a second or a third tier city. If you really want to look at it in a Chinese way, about 100,000 generally speaking, but it's still fairly spread out. There's not really that much to steal. I mean, yeah, people can steal stuff from your house, this and that, but in terms of like, yeah, there's the Target and stuff like that, but it's a whole different type of thing, right? And maybe that's me defending my semi-urban lifestyle, but But anywho, I think that it's important to realize is that these big cities will be, destroyed once this economy starts to get worse. Once the value of things kind of goes down. I mean, obviously, pawn shops, illegal and legal, are going to be, fairly big, and this is how people are going to make their money. You know, you have to remember that the resale business. I was talking. My boss. I was at that Christmas party, and my boss was telling me about this. But he said that his brother was a tenured professor, but now he sells books for a living. And for example, he was in a Cracker Barrel. Sorry, I couldn't think. I'm trying to think of the name. He was in a Cracker Barrel. Bought up all these different books that were rare because they were selling them for $5 less than they were on Amazon. He bought them all up and he sold them on Amazon. But you realize that this is the way society has been going and is continuing to go, where people are just going to keep on selling this rare stuff. But the thing is, though, antiques are rare, and there's only so much money you can make from that. You know, so I mean, but this is the way a lot of people are living in the United States now, and so that's why you're either going to have some sort of statism, some sort of crackdown and authoritarianism where this is the job you're going to do, or, but I don't think the US has, the federal government has any guts to do that. So I think you're going to have just areas where you're going to have a job and we're going to give you one to make sure that you don't become a thief or, something else. So you're not lumping proletariat and that's the way it's going to go. Otherwise you're going to be killed. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the future that I see. Like I say, I don't think that this whole system is necessarily going to collapse. I've stepped away from the edge, if you will, in terms of that. I've stepped away from the edge of the cliff and jumping into the whole collapsitarian type thing. But definitely, I would think smarter governors out there are going to have jobs programs, and I think that they are going to find, as people like, I can't think of his name now, but the guy who wrote the book Bullshit Jobs, the anarchist guy. And there are going to be plenty of bullshit jobs out there. But guess what? They're going to keep people employed and they're going to keep them, especially the young folks, from falling into some sort of, trap, you know? So, I mean, I think that's where we're headed, in my opinion. We're going to have this return to, more of a nationalized system. You're going to have to, like I say, I mean, it's interesting, of course, people made so many comparisons to Biden that he was like FDR. It's like, well, FDR had jobs programs. FDR had, you know, the, the quadruple C organization. Now, mind you, a lot of those programs failed. A lot of them. But the reality is that this is something that needs to happen. Some sort of RAD, Reichsarbeitsdienst, is going to have to occur. And it's not necessarily for the economy. It's to keep people busy so that they don't end up just becoming, robbers, becoming, folks that work for this sort of lumpen proletariat sort of system. I mean, for me, like I say, maybe this is me getting older and realizing it, but it's not cool to be old like me and try to rob somebody's house and standing in line, or whatever, with all my shit basically seeing what the market value of, like I don't know, some tea set or something like that, or grandma's china that I stole out of somebody's house. That's not what people want to do. And by the way, that's a temporary solution. It's a temporary solution. Just keep stealing stuff. But obviously, people don't think that far ahead. I get that, but that's my opinion. Some sort of jobs program, some form of localism is going to come about, in my opinion. You know, some sort of localism, some sort of, you know, you need to be educated on this. I don't think it's going to be full on, like I say, Christo fascism, where Christianity is taught everywhere. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I think it's going to be an appreciation of the local history and a sense of, we will kill thieves, we will hang them in the street, that sort of thing, right? That sort of stuff that you haven't seen the United States for at least a fair amount of time. Depends on where you go. But I think that's going to be where we come from. These big cities are going to be cannibalized. These places like Los Angeles, and the various neighborhoods within it, like Beverly Hills, or you think of Hollywood, for example. These places I think are going to be abandoned. Um, you're not going to have these big studios where you record things, and you don't do that anyway because ultimately the studios don't really have that sort of money anymore, and they're much more penny pinching. Obviously, everything's going more towards you know. But I think that's what's going to happen. Um, this idea that you're going to have like a I'm sorry, but anarchist beliefs will never be popular. I know I'm going real schizo, so I apologize. I know people are gonna be like, "Bro, I'm trying to keep up with you, but you're just too." This is the way my brain works. I'm sorry. I am sorry, but this is the way it's going to be. It's going to be more of a strict authoritarian sort of society where people know their place and there are rigid hierarchies. And yeah, there's corruption, but ultimately people will be kicked out and everything else like that, and the system will maintain itself. You know what I mean? Whereas anarchistic ideas of like, communal living, this and that, or, co-ops, this and that, those will be given lip service to a point, but they are never going to be mainstreamed. This sort of, like I say, anarcho-communism, anarcho whatever, anarchism is a bullshit ideology that nobody takes seriously because it always turns into some sort of authoritarianism because even though they say we hate the state, what they really mean when they say they hate the state, they hate certain laws where they don't get to do what they want. That's what it is. I know I'm sounding like a basic bitch conservative, but that's the whole thing with anarchism. Marxist Leninism, may have been a promise, but ultimately ML's basically got in line and they said, okay, yes, sir, we're going to do it that way. Yes, sir, Tovarish, Lenin. Yes, sir, Tovarish Stalin. Yes, sir, Tovarish Trotsky. As much as MLs will say, I hate Trotsky, this and that. Trotsky did crush did crush rebellions and did create the framework of the Red Army. With the blocking, you know, formations behind the Red Army to make sure that nobody made one step back. Otherwise, they were going to be shot. Yeah, NKVD. And of course, before that, it was called with these various movements. So it is what it is. But authoritarianism is going to be the thing that is, and rigid discipline is what's going to create better societies. It's just that's the way it is. Um, I know people are going to disagree with that. People are going to be like, no, no. The thing is, you've already seen a reverse of this with people like Vosh who will criticize ACAB. But then when it came to January 6th, they're like, yeah, I'm glad they took down those protesters. Urgh. So of course they do like a bit of authoritarianism. It's just authoritarianism to whom? That's really what it is. So that's all I got really. I don't know how did I end up here? I have no idea, but that's how I feel. Those are my thoughts on it. Um, that's the same way that you're going to combat climate change. It's the same way you're going to combat, the issues with at least the internal issues. I can't speak to external. That's more of a neocon sort of belief that we have to worry about Russia and China. I personally think we can make deals with Russia and China and say, yeah, let's lift the sanctions on Russia, make deals with China to say, hey, let's get some of this stuff back, or at least Let's find new things so that we can make those. Like I say, I know that's probably economically impossible. It is, but that's more realistic to me. An authoritarian internally and someone who's willing to shake hands externally. That's my take. Probably completely unrealistic, maybe completely idealistic, and not very materialistic, but that's my view of it. I hope y'all enjoyed this or get some sort of you know, some sort of joy out of it. Once again, I will say it's still December 23rd, so a Merry Christmas to you and yours. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Um, all the rest of the holidays, I think, don't come till later on, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it there. Hopefully, y'all enjoy this. See you later. Goodbye.